Hi guys, what's going on? Zura over here. Hope everyone is having a good day. It is beautiful morning here in Dallas, Texas. Not too hot yet. We usually get over 100 these days, but it is finally time to review the game everyone's been waiting for versus famous Tony Chen. This was over the board game from the DFW FIDE Royale tournament that took place at Texas Chess Center, Irving location specifically. Tony, I've actually played him twice already. This was our second encounter. First game, I actually lost with white colors in 1 hour time control. And I have recorded a short video about that game as well. He was 1700 back then. Now I think he has already crossed 2000. All right, very good to see a local scene getting stronger, and we're getting better players, or players getting better. Let's put it that way. Now, I hope you find this instructive, and if you actually do, it would mean the world to me if you help the channel, subscribe, like, and spread the word. All the good things. Now, let's jump into it without further ado. I started with knight f3. Tony goes knight f6, c4, knight to c6. Apparently, after d4, we transpose into knight's tango variation. I'm actually curious who named this opening knight tango, but it does make a lot of sense actually. I myself have used this system with black. If you are Queen's Indian slash Nimzo player, I think this knight moves does make a lot of sense, and a lot of times it transposes into similar structures here after e6. A3 is the move I decide to face this structure with. Basically, the idea is as straightforward as stopping the b4 b4 check, basically bishop b4 check, and taking the control of the square, right? So black goes d6 here, knight c3, and transposes into a King's Indian now with the move g6. We could argue that black is gonna waste a tempo here with e6 and potentially then pushing e5. However, how useful is white's tempo also on a3? That is to be determined. Now bishop goes to g7, bishop e2, short castle, e5, d5, knight e7. So we have transposed into King's Indian Mar del Plata variation that is quite popular. It was probably more popular around like 70s, 80s, 90s than it is now, but still a lot of classic games in this variation. So how useful is this tempo a3? Let's see. So b4 I think makes a lot of sense to get the c5 going immediately here. With the queenside expansion, that is in general the typical plans here for both colors. Basically, black is trying to push on the king side and get his pawn structure rolling there, and white will try to do the same thing on the queen side. Specifically open up the c file here, most likely trade on d6, and then try to use the c file for the activity. All right, black now after b4 challenges this queenside immediately with a5. Right now there is a pin on a file, so b4 pawn is hanging. I decided to play bishop d2. Computer is actually suggesting that it would be a better idea to capture this pawn on a5 immediately, which is a little not intuitive, because after rook a5 our pawn structure is going to be damaged. However, this is only temporary because white can play a4 and basically go bishop a3, bishop b4 to kick this rook away, and then play c5. And white indeed manages to get the quick pressure on the black's queen side there, because after bishop before c5, d6 pawn could be immediately the target, for example with, like, let's say knight d2 knight c4, or knight d2 knight b5. The reason I'm playing knight d2 first is because e4 pawn would be hanging. So I think this would actually be in the more spirit of the Mar del Plata variation, in that line actually, where a pawn is still on a3, on a2, excuse me. Black plays a5 and white plays bishop a3, captures, and then bishop captures on b4. However, this is, I think, even more convenient. You may say now, aren't we gonna lose the tempo that we were ahead, right? a3, and then we played a4. However, now rook captured a5, so I think once bishop gets to b4, also this rook will have to retreat back, so they also gonna lose the tempo on that. All right, now let's return back to the game and see what happened. I played bishop d2 actually with the similar idea of capturing on a5 and then potentially going like knight b5, bishop b4, and c5. So he decides to go knight h5, which was expected. Black needs to get his counterplay going here with f5, and also the move I could not figure out actually, or I could not properly evaluate, let's put it that way, was knight goes to f4 here. So I was seriously considering capturing on a5 immediately, and was not sure about this move knight f4. So obviously I do not want to give up the dark square bishop here on f4, so I will have to give up the light squares, light squared bishop here. Computer is suggesting just simply rook e1, threatening bishop f1, and after capture take back with the knight, hold on that pawn for a dear life there, and potentially then go continue bishop b4 c5. Against f5 it is simply suggesting queen b3, and if you capture there, there will be knight g5, and we'll take that pawn back with either knight g3 or c3. I would say now it does make sense, but at the board, this is not a pawn we're really trying to hold on to, and I was not quite sure about giving up the light squared bishop there, so that is probably a learning curve there for me as well. What I did instead in the game was this move g3, which, as you can see, computer does not like. I had the same feeling about this move. I figured it could potentially be weakening my king side. However, I did not see an immediate way to exploit it. For example, like bishop h3, I just moved the rook away, and f5 actually there could be something like knight g5 trapping this bishop. So there's no immediate bishop h3, but I think black played this out properly here with f5. Okay, now I decide to capture on a5. Knight goes back to f6 to put more pressure on my center, and after a little bit of a thought here, I decided to keep pushing my pawn c5. This is again, I think, a typical pawn sacrifice in these positions to take down black's center. So I don't think capturing on c5 immediately works, because I'll probably go bishop c4 threatening d6, and then I want to capture knight e5 also. So on c5, Tony went into a deep thought here, and he decided to capture on e4, and after I go knight g5 here, d takes c5. All right, take both pawns. So basically, in two moves, from being a pawn up, suddenly I am a pawn down. Okay, I played bishop c4 with the idea of a discovered check here, and he takes the third pawn as well on d5. Knight e takes d5. So just capture everything basically. So suddenly my center is gone, or I would say my pawns in the center are gone. However, white does have a lot of initiative now. Bishop goes to e3 to put the pressure on this d5 knight. c6, bishop captures c5 first. Rook goes to e8, and I'll be getting my pawns back. I think this was actually the critical moment in the game. I played bishop to b6, but let's take a second what is going on here. Black has 3 defenders on that d5 knight, where I also have 3 attackers, so I can simply capture there. But what computer is suggesting, and this is a very obvious move which I was considering as well during the game, but I was not sure of the move order. Queen goes to b3, okay, bringing heavy artillery on the d file here, aiming the rook d1 specifically here. So black would be forced to kick this knight away. And now is an intermediate move that I actually did see during the game. I was not sure whether that would change things here, and it appears that it does change things. Now bishop b6, because I think what is going to happen is I don't think I want to allow after knight e4 a move like bishop e6 here. Okay, so I'll have to go bishop b6. Also a5 pawn was hanging with the tempo there, so bishop b6 intermediate move. Now attacking the queen. Queen will have to go to d7 to keep protecting this d5 knight, and most likely now I'll take on e4. Knight captures, king goes to h7. Now rook a to d1, which will win the pawn. So after queen e7, I can just take on d5 cd, queen takes d5, and we have an interesting dynamics of minor pieces now. I have bishop and the knight. Obviously my knight is pretty strong here, especially blocking this isolated e5 pawn and making the dark square bishop bad, right? Really passive. However, black does have some counterplay here related with the light square bishop, because I do not have light square bishop, and as I mentioned earlier, g3 now has weakened up my king side entirely. So there will be potential threats to my light squares here, I think. But white is a pawn up here. I'm not sure if queen a3 works actually. I think it does not, because I may have queen f7 here, don't I? I mean, obviously you can go queen e7, but this could be a little trick here. If you go rook e7 first, check, and when you go back, then you are getting mated from g8 basically. All right, so queen b3 immediately would be the way to an advantage here, but I did not find it immediately. First, I played bishop b6, and after queen d7, I decided to just simply capture on e4. Knight captures e4, knight captures e4, king goes to h8, and now I played queen b3. So I actually thought that this was the same thing basically as in that line that I just showed. However, the difference is now king has moved away from this a to g8 diagonal. So instead of h6, black has played king h8, which changes the situation here quite a bit, because now black is simply allowed to move that knight away. Knight captures b6, a takes b6, and queen to e7. For some reason here, I got fixated with this idea of activity myself, like knight d6 and knight f7 basically. Again here, probably already white should be aware of the dangers here, which I definitely was not, and kept playing with the inertia, which is never a good idea, by the way. Rook f2, d1, bishop goes to g4, f3, bishop retreats back to f5, and now knight to d6, threatening knight f7 check. However, after rook f8, knight f7 check is actually a mistake. The reason for that is after rook takes f7, black will get a lot of counterplay near the white king. This g3, f3 moves have exposed the white king to a lot of open diagonals here. So we'll see that in a little bit, but it was probably time to tighten the belt here and play something like rook a2 probably, and computer's evaluation is still around equal, but at this point I would say that tables have turned. It is actually black now who is having more fun because of exposed white king, I would think, from a practical perspective. So I go knight f7 check, rook captures f7, bishop captures f7, and e4. Now the a1 rook is also hanging, but more importantly than a1 rook, my king is very weak, white king. So I bring rook on the second rank to help with the defense. However, after e takes f3 here, I cannot capture the pawn immediately because the bishop is hanging clearly. So I played rook to f2 here to try to basically bring more forces near my king here. But that allows rook a3. Now it is 2 pawns for an exchange, and black is still having menacing counterplay here. Queen c4, rook goes to c3. This is the moment when we are both in time trouble. I'm actually under a minute. Tony is probably under 5 minutes, I would say, maybe 3 minutes, something like 3 minutes, I think. So I have queen a2 move, but I decided to go for an active play here, queen f4, threatening queen b8 check. Also, point being that if you take my bishop on f7, there is rook d8 check. The back rank now, you'll be forced to block it with the bishop, and then there is queen d4 or queen e5 move, which will hang the rook on c8. On c3, excuse me. So clearly, black did not take the bishop there. He played bishop e5, covering the b8 square. Now I think pretty much the only move for me is to go queen h6 here, again keeping an eye on the last rank here, back rank. If queen f7, obviously there is rook d8 check. Check. So with the time trouble and clock ticking down, Tony decided to repeat the moves. Black is crushing in this position. If he keeps playing here with any normal move, I think like any simple move, honestly, like rook a3 even, I think would be putting black in a very good winning situation. Computer, I think at this point is around like +5. Apparently, because there is an immediate win here with bishop d4 pinning my rook. If I capture, there's this forced sequence which I did not think was working during the game, but after rook f1, apparently he has f2 check, king g2, there's bishop e4 check, and everything is hanging with checks. If I go king h3, there will be queen f1, so I have to take the bishop, queen e4, and this is what I thought, that I would go queen h3 and hide there, but there is queen f5 check, and after king g2, one time actually they can go queen f3, and once king moves back to h3, then queen takes f7. So black simply ends up 2 pawns up, uh, and my king is still weak. And on top of everything, black has a protected passer here on the queen side, so any endgame will be hopeless pretty much for white. So yeah, that was the story of this game pretty much. We repeated the moves here, and agreed on a draw. So 1.5 to my half point so far versus Tony. All right, I hope you found this instructive. I personally definitely did myself. I think game is a good illustration of how time sensitive these King's Indian positions can be, specifically around the middle game play here. I would say this position, the difference between one tempo here, all right, difference between like Queen B3 here and going for basically this continuation, and the move order which I chose is huge. The difference is huge. It's like plus 1.5 versus around equal. Okay, one tempo. Cool. Let's wrap it up here, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Cheers.